Milwaukee now has a power manager to manage chargers. This is the Milwaukee Power Manager. It's not an M12, it's not an M18, it's not an MX platform. It's just a power manager. And as you can see, there's 12 outlets on here. So it manages the output of these outlets and manages the 15 amps or 20 amps coming in from your actual circuit or from the outlet that it's plugged into, and then distributes it appropriately or proportionately based on your input that you give it. So there's a lot of technology built into this, and it's not just a power strip by any means. Now, this is available in this one here, that's the 3333-15, which is the 15 amp version. And then they also have a 20 amp version, which I believe is also the 3333-20. So if you have the high output or the 20 amp outlets in your shop or wherever you have this or want to plug this in, then you can go to the 20 amp version of this, but this is the 15 amp version. And by the way, it's also pack out compatible. We also have the pack out 6-bay charger here. So we're going to use both of these. In fact, some others as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Well, it's pretty obvious, as we mentioned, that it integrates with the pack out system. We've got a couple of the wall mount plates on the wall for the pack out system. And we have the power manager on the wall and then a couple of 6-bay chargers as well. And then we have the supercharger mounted on the wall here. Now what we're going to see here is the power manager able to manage the power. Pretty self-explanatory as far as what it does. And how it's going to do it is literally like these white lights here on the top of the unit. They will actually turn red once we power things on. Right now I have it plugged in, but I have no batteries in any of the chargers, so it's not drawing any power through this. But as we do start drawing power through it, we will see those red lights start matching with the white lights in order of how much power it's consuming. Now the white lights you can actually adjust, and this is basing on a typical 15 amp breaker because this is the 15 amp version. As I mentioned earlier, they also have a 20 amp version of this, but with this being the 15 amp, at max, it's going to draw up to 15 amps from that outlet to keep from blowing that breaker or triggering the breaker on that circuit. Now, let's say that you're actually sharing this circuit with something else. Maybe you have something else plugged in on this. Then you can actually dial this down and say, you know what, I'm only going to let this unit kind of consume, 10 of those amps or 6 of those amps. So you can dial this down to what you want. That's as low as it goes, down to 3, and that, I believe they're saying like 5.1 amps. And at max, that's actually 12 amps output. Now, it will consume up to 15 amps from the outlet, but as far as output goes, it's only going to output up to 12 amps through the power charger or through the power manager and into the chargers, or the chargers consuming that through the power supply or through the power manager. So again, you can adjust this as needed. They do recommend to have it at 100% until you know that you need to dial that down, and then you can do so. Now, before we throw some batteries on here, let's just talk about output as far as these chargers are concerned. Now, the 6-bay charger, the 6-bay rapid charger, I believe will consume up to 5.5 amps. So that's 5.5 here, 5.5 here. That's 11 amps total, and this, the supercharger, I believe, is a 4 amp charger. So you're looking at just these two, and the supercharger should consume about 15 amps of power, which again, if we talked about it, it's really only going to consume or actually allow to feed up to 12 amps of output through the power manager. So I'm going to try to throw a bunch of batteries on this thing and see if we can't get this to kind of trigger the output and shutting one down and allowing the others to charge and then going on to the others. And how this happens, or actually the process at which it happens, the top outlets are going to get priority. So if you have chargers where you're going to be charging batteries that you want the soonest, then you want those at the top. And if one is going to consume all of it, which it's not, you're not going to get 15 amps pulling from there, but it's going to go left to right and then down to the next row and then left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. So we get that, right? So the top is going to get priority, and then the second row, then the third row, then the fourth row, and before the rows, left to right as well. Now on the 6-bay chargers, how they work, it will charge in parallel. In other words, it'll charge 2 batteries at a time, and it does it kind of the same way. So the top row, it's going to charge both at the same time, and then when it gets done with those, it'll go to the second row and then to the third row. Same with this one. Now on the supercharger, it will charge both of these at one time. However, if it's a Forge battery or one of the high output batteries, it will actually supercharge one of them at a time and then move over to the next one after that's done supercharging, and it will supercharge that one or just charge it based on the battery type. By the way, if you have ideas of how you would use this, then let us know in the comments how. So I'm going to go ahead and throw 2 Forge batteries on this supercharger. You see my red indicator here. You see it's climbing a little bit, so that's showing you how much power is being pulled out. Go ahead and throw 2 on here. And 2 on here. Now we'll see, we're not quite consuming 100%, but we're getting really close on charging all these batteries at one time. Now these really aren't going to do anything because it's going to lie in wait until the top ones are finished. But you can see that we could have many chargers in here pulling from this, and these down here, it wouldn't charge at all, and it would wait until these are complete and then move on to the next. Now in this case, you can see we're supercharging this battery here on this Forge battery, and then once that is done, it will move over to this battery and supercharge it. But you can see that it's still charging this one, it's just supercharging this one. That tells us the white logo there that it's actually supercharging on this side. And again, we're at, I would say somewhere around 90% of the capacity of the Power Manager right now for the circuits at the moment. Okay, I've unplugged all my chargers because before we get this charged, I want to check something. And I'm going to get into this wire right here. And right here, you're saying, Tim, did you really cut that wire to that new Power Manager? I sure did, because I want to see what kind of amperage we're actually drawing here. Forgive my messiness of wires right now since I'm undone these, which, by the way, if you'll notice here, and we talked about it when it was over there on the workbench, but the wire organizers, those are just brilliant, that you have so many of them. So, if you have a bunch of chargers plugged in, at least you can make those some type of an organized mess, if you will, without them just going all over the place. So I love that all that's built in to the Power Manager there. So I've got our common there. So let's actually plug it back in. And we should be able to see our amp draw here. So 8.8. It looks like we're drawing about 9 amps at the moment. So we're not even close to really tapping out the 15 amps or even the 12 amps with all 3 of these chargers going. Though again, this is not going to make a difference. Again, still staying around 9 amps. And the cool thing about this, as we can see, we've got all Milwaukee chargers on here. It really does not matter at all. Obviously, this is going to work with all Milwaukee chargers, but it's also going to work with any charger. As you can see, now we can throw a snap-on charger on there. So we've got all our Milwaukee batteries charging. We've got the snap-on battery charging. And now we're pushing over 10 amps. So obviously we're not maxing out the 5.5 amp chargers at 5.5 amps or the 4 amps on the supercharger or the 3 amps on the snap-on. So we're staying below that. But again, if we did add more and more chargers, the Power Manager is going to be able to handle all that and be able to succinctly charge those in time. Once these are done, shut these off, start charging down here, and move on down the line. But right now we're charging 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 batteries at one time. Now I'm going to go ahead and bump down our power consumption and then plug these back in. So you can see at the first test, it took 30 seconds or so, but it went ahead and maxed out, went up to around 9.5, 10 amps. And then it actually throttled it back down to where we have the consumption set now. So you can see all these blinking lights. It is only charging on this supercharger right now. There are no lights on this charger, on that charger, or on the snap-on charger. So this one right here is getting priority, and only this one. And then once this one's charged, it's going to move on to the next one. Now let me see if I can bump this up, if it will recycle and retest. So yeah, so now it just kicked on actually both of these chargers. Now we're back up to 10 amps. I must have gone too far. Should back it back down. So yeah, now you can see it's turned off one of the rapid chargers and turned off the snap-on charger. And now it's cycled it back down to now only drawing 5.5 amps. So it looks like each time you change it, it will actually go and kind of, do a test maybe, kind of max things out, and then ramp it back down to the setting that you have. So again, now we're drawing a little less than 6 amps and running 2 chargers right this moment. And these other blinking ones are not running at the moment. Now the price on this is $500. Yes, $499 for the Power Manager. Now you're going to say, well, that's a lot of money, and absolutely it is. However, we do see it being applicable in many areas. Now, if you have 2 or 3 Milwaukee batteries and 4 or 5 tools, then no, it's not going to be applicable to you. However, think of landscapers, lawn care, auto detailers, mechanic shops, like large diesel shops, things like that, where you're using maybe dual batteries at a time, large output batteries at a time, and you need to charge those all at once, or charge them in the evening so that they're all ready to go the next morning, and you don't have to worry about plugging it into 10 different outlets on the shop and making sure that each one are on different circuits, that sort of thing, then it really does apply very well. So it's a place that you could actually just throw all the batteries, have a centralized place. Think of a lawn trailer. So literally you just bring one 15 amp extension cord, plug it into the trailer, and then the Power Manager handles the rest and distributes those charges as it's needed, as it finishes charging and it moves on down the line. Hey, let us know what you think about this. Also, keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And by all means, if you hated our video, well, let us know in the comments why. Have a great day and keep smiling.